Cass, to begin with, can you tell us what it is that you do? And what is the title that you go by? Investment banker?
I'm an investor and an advisor,
Right.
and I invest in a number of industries and advise a number of industries. A long-time focus of both of those activities has been in film and television and media entities generally.
What in particular drives you or interests you as an investor in those areas, in those risky areas?
Well, you know, the media industry per se isn't necessarily risky. I think that you're talking about the pointy end, the film and television production side of it. And I've had a long-standing investment in an independent production company in Australia called RB Films. I've also had a more recent investment in an international distribution company whose economics I had a good look at and thought that would be, you know, a purely financial decision, a financial investment. The investment in RB Films, Essential Viewing, was one that was not made on purely financial bases. It was made for personal reasons. It was because I knew the founders and I wanted to participate in what they were doing. And that investment goes back to 1991, you know. It's coming up to sort of 17, 18 years now, and it's been a terrific investment. Haven't had any financial dividends, had a lot of cultural dividends and been to some fantastic parties, understood a lot about the industry, and I think I've been able to contribute back to the entity.
Even though it was triggered by personal interest
Yep.
and a relationship with Rosemary Blight, do you supervise the investment in any kind of official way?
I'm the chairman, so we do have regular board meetings to you know, look at the business and where it's going, where its opportunities are, where its risks are. As part of being on the board, obviously we sign off on financial statements, and for some of the more complex financial arrangements that these companies do have to make with distributors, with broadcasters and so forth, or with other investors, yeah, I have a hand in looking at the financial models, working out where the best return is, working out where our negotiating points are, and I feed that back into the mix.
What was the objective of that investment? Was it to provide working capital to pay salaries, or was it to acquire rights, or both?
In the beginning, I believe it was I think it was for working capital. Yeah.
Can you give us any indication of the sort of nature of the size of that investment in round terms?
It was small. We're talking the tens of thousands. We're not talking hundreds of thousands.
So it was, but it was strategically important for the company, obviously.
It was strategically very important for the company. The company was facing a fairly major decision, and that was that it had been able to attract interstate support, funding support, and it was not able to attract that for various reasons in New South Wales. And so it had a choice. Do we pick up and move our families to X state, or do we stay here? And all I simply did was match the money for them to stay here.
In the context of being an investor in the international organisation, your more recent investment, you say it looks like a good financial decision. Mm-hmm. Is that on the same sort of scale, or is that a bigger investment?
Well, in actual fact, what we did was we parlayed some of RB Films' success with Clubland, which is our current film, into an investment into the sales agent, which is selling that film. So we knew that the sales agent for the UK was going to have X amount of receipts. We knew that it was our product that was going to cause those receipts to happen. And so while we were negotiating with that sales agent on, you know, how we're going to split the usual percentages, we negotiated an ownership stake as well. We also did that because we liked the particular agent and have been working with him for a very, very long time. He set himself up with very good corporate governance, and so, you know, it wasn't a silly investment. And also because I think that an entity in Australia that is so dependent on international revenues, that it really should have high visibility on how the international sales agents and distributors work.
Can you tell us the name of the company?
Yeah, Goalpost Films.
Right. Would you consider this line of investment, both as individual producers and other corporations active in film distribution, as a potential future investment strategy or part of your strategy?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I've noticed, having been involved in this industry, particularly in Australia, is that the producers aren't the ones that get all the economics, right? It's either the sales agents or the distributors that take off with the loot, basically. And so to move the production company further up the chain to be able to grab some of that loot is a naturally good thing. Some producers don't want to go there because they just don't see it's their part of the business. Their core skills are in producing, and that's fine. A lot of the sales agents don't want to come back into production. The risky end, but also the end with blue sky. I tend to like to balance my investments, particularly where we're in similar industries. And so, in economics terms, it's vertical integration.
Would you advise others to follow suit? Other investors?
I believe it would be smart to, but again, you have to choose your targets.
So in Australia, being familiar with it sufficiently to know the answer to this question, I mean, there's a lot of, it's almost entirely government funding driven, except for the very low end. To what extent is there a place then for private investment in production, as opposed to distribution, say?
There is a place for private investment in production, and I believe that the producers and the product would be better served with more private investment. I'm not saying that the private investors are going to get it right on the creative side, because they're not, or they very rarely are, and if they do, it's by good luck, not by good management in general. But some of the deals which are negotiated with a production company that doesn't have enough money to produce a particular product are onerous on that production company, and I believe that with private equity in place, and the new offset scheme is attempted to boost this, it gives the production companies greater leverage against those that are trying to be usurious. The big problem with production companies to date and producers in general has been that they have tended, and there are obvious exceptions, but they have tended to see their production fees as the sole opportunity of where they have a profit and loss, they say revenue, production fees, costs, wages, whereas the way I'd look at it is I'd say revenue, product, production fees, yes, international sales, less rebates, yes, what can I do with DVDs, what can I do with mobile rights, what can I do with all of the rights of that product, and then what are the costs against that? And it's a very different mind change, and I think that investors just naturally think that way because, we're greedy.
Well, but it also means that had more producers thought along those lines, you would create a sustainable production environment.
Exactly, because the producers today, again en masse, are giving away too much of their economics and to external parties, and most of those external parties are offshore. And that has been a function, part necessity, simply to get their products funded, but also in part just a mindset. And what the industry and what the various funding bodies have been lobbying the federal government on is to get that necessity part changed with either tax benefits or offset benefits or whatever it is, so that the production companies have more negotiating leverage when they go off to pre-sell their products.
Going back to the original notion of investing in intellectual property, is in a broader sense than just film and television, is Australia a mature market for that?
Ooh, on the investee side or the investor side?
On the investor side.
Oh, on the investor side. I'm not sure the investor side has had the benefit of the range of opportunities that other countries have. So,
for example?
Australia is very bad at investing in science, for example. Other countries are quite good at it. Some other countries are quite good at it. Australia is very good at investing in digging up holes in the ground and hoping to find stuff there, and that's because of its natural wealth. Australia also has a natural wealth in intellectual property and has had some, world-class innovations, but when you try to test those innovations in a market that's as small as Australia, where US, European, or other product can come in and just thump you, it's very, very difficult to get the funds up in order to bring that product to fruition, because the risks quite often outweigh what the perceived rewards are. When you start looking at a product or a service or a piece of intellectual property which can quickly grow internationally, and they're rare, but they exist. I'm an investor in a company at the moment which is doing that. Then the rewards are sensational, because the pricing is often pricing of the opportunity is often incorrect in the early stages, simply because it's so hard to get money.
So it makes it more attractive for the investor.
Yeah, so we're in a, which I won't name, but we're in an investment. We got a good deal, I believe. It is fast growing offshore. It has an element of intellectual property about it, has an element of financial discipline about it, and it would have been difficult for them to raise finance on much better terms than ours. So we assessed that.